CJ. All right, I'm going to take this off because we're going to start with a real conversation about pickleball. It's going to be uncomfortable to hear, perhaps, but sometimes we need the hard truth if we want to face it, if we want to overcome that hard truth. And here's the hard truth that I want you to start with here. Most games are not being won by this team. They're being lost by the other team. Okay, let me repeat that. Most games are not won by a team. They're lost by a team. Okay, so if you're losing more than you should, it's not because your opponents are winning. And this is the hard truth. It's hard to hear sometimes, but it's because you are losing those games. And if you want to win more games, the first step is to stop losing the game, to give yourself time to win it. Now, here's a secret that most players are unaware of. When your opponents win a game against you, it's because you're helping them. More specifically, you're giving away too many points. We call them gifted points. That's what we're going to be talking about today and throughout the rest of this mini-series. And it is with the help of these points that your opponents are able to win when they play against you. So step one in your journey in terms of losing less and winning more is to stop giving away so many gifted points. So it's reduce gifted points. Now, this step of reducing gifted points by itself with nothing else is going to make a huge difference in your game. It's going to let you play much more productive pickleball, a different type of pickleball when you're playing. Now, let's be clear on what we mean by a gifted point. A gifted point is a point scored by your opponent whenever they did not earn the point. And I'll give you an example. I brought my paddle like CJ said, so I have it ready for me here. So think of it this way. You're sitting there, you and your partner are up at the non-volley zone on the return side. You get that high third shot, nice and juicy, sitting right here in the middle. You rear back and smash that ball, and where's it go? The net, 3 or 4 feet out. That is a gifted point. Your opponents had to do nothing, not really anyway, to get a point, to gain a point. And I'm going to show you some video in a little bit that's going to really highlight this for you. That'll show you that this is something that happens all the time. Now, this is one example, this high ball that gets put down into the net or put away, but it's a common pattern. So let's explore the magnitude of this problem, right? This is not a one-off kind of a problem. How often do these really happen? Now, what do you think? And you're going to put it in the chat in a second. How many gifted points would you say does each team give away during a regular game at your courts? Would it surprise you if I tell you that many of the games that you're playing include 4 to 5 or more gifted points per side per game? Put it down in the chat. Put down yes if you're surprised by that, N for no if you already knew this already. Also, let us know in your room like this. If this is new to you, put a wow on your face like, oh my God. If you already knew it, put a thumbs up. All right, CJ, I don't know how the rooms are doing out there. I'm going to look at it real quick here. I'm seeing some thumbs up. I got to get my shades on here to see these. So somebody's going like this, thumb up, right? Good. But here's the thing. Even if you knew it, we got to do something about it, right? We got to fix. We can't be giving away 4 to 5 points a game. That's just, it makes the game too easy, as you're going to see in a second. Now, listen, CJ and I, we're not in the habit of just throwing this kind of number out there and just saying, you believe us and that's it, right? Even though you should believe us. We're going to back it up. We study game tape, lots and lots of game tape. So we're going to give you a look behind the scenes at the work that we do to be able to coach you with this type of knowledge, this type of information. And what we're going to do is we're going to look at 6 rallies from 3 different matches, all 3.5 level tournament play. One of these matches is actually a gold medal match at the US Open. So these are good 3.5 players that we're going to be looking at in a second. We're going to pull up the video and we're going to run through the video now. Before we get into it, no criticism intended of any of these players. This first one here, we're going to start off real easy with a missed return of serve. Right away, we just hit it. We hit the ground running with a missed return of serve. This next one here, we're going to see a missed 4-shot. This is a US Open gold medal match, folks, 3.5. Good players. What do we see here? That's that four shot we talked about, right? 3 feet out, okay? Now we're going to look at a men's 3.5 match. So you don't think we're just cherry picking some different things here. We're looking at all sorts of levels of matches and all types of matches. What we're going to see here is that third shot going high. Boom. Popped right into the net, right? And these I want you to remember, because we're going to talk about these later when we tell you what one of the things that you can do right now to stop giving away points. Another point from this, another rally from this exact match. 4 feet out, right? Win or attempt versus keep them back. Keep that in mind, because we're going to come back to that later. All right. Now this is a mixed 3.5 tournament play. Good players. One of these teams moved up to 4-0 right after this tournament, as I recall. Now, missed four shots can happen off the bounce, as happens here. 4-shot bounce, boom, out of bounds. And if you're wondering, all these are running at 50% speed so that you can see them more clearly and they don't have little jumps. This one here, you're going to see, this is the very next rally. This is the very next rally in this match. And we're going to have another missed 4-shot, another gifted point. And this is not uncommon to see 2 gifted points in a row. It's really not. We're going to see this one in the air, and it's going to go wide, okay? So what the takeaway from all of this is, when you look at all of these 3 matches, they played a total of 121 points. Out of 121 points, not played, they scored. So 121 points were scored, right? We're not counting the ones that weren't scored. 66 out of 121 were gifted. That's 55%, 9.5 points per game. Remember the 4 to 5 I gave you? That's right in the middle of that. And this is tournament 3.5 level play. Okay, the figures for these gifted points are actually higher in most rec play. This is a meaningful part of your game that you can focus on right now to improve how you play and your results. So let's work through it and see what happens if we're able to reduce our gift points. Let's look at the math of this and see what happens if we're able to lower our number from 4 to 5 per game on average, if we're able to do better than that. So, as I mentioned, when we play, we are giving away 5 points, right? This is now, and these are our gifted points. Our opponents, thankfully right now, are also giving away 5 points per game on average, right? So if you're playing at level, you're giving away 5, they're giving away 5. So what does this mean? This means you're really only playing 6 to get 6 points. You get to 6 points that you earn, or they get to 6 points that they earn. You get to 11, you win the game, okay? The rest of the points, the 5, are gifted. Now, what happens if in the future, right? So this is future you, after you've implemented the work that the work we're gonna give you in these 3 workshops. If you can go from 5, let's say just to 3. Your opponents, they're not here, right? I don't see them in your room. I don't know if you see them. I don't see them there. They're not in the pickleball system. They don't know how to do this. So what are they giving you in the future? 5. So now your opponents have to figure out how to get 8 points. You only got to figure out how to get 6. I don't know about you, but that's a pretty good deal. Now, hopefully you can see how this one change, just reducing this number in your game, mathematically will radically change your outcomes. And I mentioned this earlier, but I want to repeat it because CJ and I always stress this when we teach. The first step in winning is you got to stop losing. And the way you stop losing is you reduce the number of gifted points that you're giving away. Your opponents remain the same. It's not even a fair fight anymore. It's almost like you're starting off at 2-0-2 every time you start serving a game against them. So, and here's the thing I want you to understand. Just this one change here, just this one change. You're going to lose less and win more with this one change. So now let's talk about how we do this. How do we go from 5 to 3? How do we reduce it? The way that we do this is we need to laser focus all of our work on the return side. Okay? So how? Reduce gifted points. We will focus on our return side play. Okay. The reason we're going to focus on the return side, it's because our return side errors are the errors that are causing us to give the points away. You all know that pickleball scoring rule is set up so that the only team that can score points is the serve team. So the only way we can give points away is when we're on the return side. And this is a better understanding of how the framework of the game works, lets us focus, laser focus on the side that really matters to reduce our gifted points. It's this type of framework, and CJ is going to get into a little more detail for you in a second, that informs our decision to focus all of our energy on the return side. Now, let's keep in mind the following. A point that is won by the serve team, like they hit that great shot down the line or something like that, counts exactly the same as when we miss our return of serve. It's the same value. Until our return side is absolutely watertight, absolutely nothing else matters. And when I come back, I'm going to give you some more specifics on the return side. But for now, understand that until your return side is spick and span, we like to say, don't worry about the rest. This approach to pickleball, where we can laser focus on a part of the game, is what we call the FOSS approach. That's an acronym we use for Framework, Objective, Strategy, and Shots. CJ is going to explain the process more fully to you in a second here. But just so you know what it is, it's a process that CJ and I developed, an approach that we developed to pickleball, so that we could help pickleball players like you by providing you the best actionable information so you can fully develop as pickleball players.
So the FOSS approach has helped so many players unstick, if you will. And I'm going to be sharing some of these players' stories with you throughout the mini-series. They're players who sat much where you are sitting today at a workshop just like this one. And now they're playing their best pickleball, having learned an effective way to play. Hey, Tony, why don't you go ahead and get your board ready for our next section?
I'm going to put up here the 3 items you got to do this right now. I'll see you in a few minutes.
Cool. So some of our system members, like Jan, they don't want to share their pictures, but she was eager to share how Framework helped her game. Here's what she had to say. I had the best day of pickleball in 4 years of playing. I headed to the courts with my new knowledge. I knew that I was playing 2 sides, the return and the serve side. Truly, the difference was outstanding. My head was clear, my focus was good, and I won a lot. And then I think she said a lot of thank yous. So being able to see the secret that gifted points are the cause of most lost games, and knowing the source of this flaw is in our games and how to fix it is because Tony and I understand a part of pickleball that most instructors either don't know, or perhaps they know it, but they don't teach it. And this is the FOSS approach that Tony mentioned. So as we get ready to move deeper into FOSS, I'd like to know a little bit more about where you've gained your pickleball knowledge or your pickleball training to date. And it might be several of these things, but if you would, pick the one that you use most frequently. You're going to put that number in the chat. So number 1, friends or fellow players. Number 2, YouTube or free online resources. Number 3, paid in-person coaching. Number 4, a local unpaid guru, or number 5, other. So go ahead and put that number in the chat and we'll see the results in a bit. As Tony mentioned, FOSS stands for Framework, Objectives, Strategies, and Shots. Everything we do in pickleball, including the shots we hit, originates from the framework of our game. That's why Framework is so important. And Framework is the top of the FOSS approach pyramid. Can we show the pyramid? Do we have the pyramid up? And if we can, that would be fantastic. See if that's coming in. But if not, I'm good. There we go. All right. So again, FOSS is Framework, Objectives, Strategies, and Shots. So you can think of this framework as the cover, the photo on a puzzle box. And I want to look at each section of the pyramid just a little deeper. So we've been talking about framework or how the game is built, and this is the most important level. The next level is objectives. The framework drives your actionable objectives on the court. Strategies. Those are the best way to accomplish those objectives. And then lastly, shots. These are the shots you'll actually hit when you play. Now, most players start at the bottom of the chart. They're spending their times chasing after shots and strategies, and it's most likely because that's what you've heard from a YouTube video or from a friend at the courts. As you can see, this is putting the cart before the horse, so as to say, because there are limitations in this approach. Number one, how do you know the information is correct? Second thing, how do you know the information is complete? Or number three, how do you know the information is right for your game? So I want to take a look at those poll results, if we could, and see where everybody was getting their information. And let's see, what I see here is I'm looking at all the different rooms, room 1, 2, and 3. And yes, YouTube seems to be the king or queen, whatever you want to say. YouTube is number one. Fellow players, ooh, and then Guru comes up next. Yes, that's typically where we get our information. So it's just super easy to understand because these results tell us why so many players are chasing shots and strategies. Now, this is what one of our members, Barry, said about chasing shots and strategies. He said he found himself jumping from one tip to another because he didn't understand the framework. He thought he had to have fancy spins and fancy shots to be a good player. I wish I understood the framework early on. I would have saved myself a lot of time. And that's Barry BLB from North Carolina. He's probably out there listening today. So think about it. I bet that nobody has sat down with you to explain how the pickleball puzzle is put together. I mean, most times players or coaches are just saying, hit this shot or move to this position, do this, do that. Here's the thing. Tony and I recognize you as an intelligent player who actually wants to know what in the world is going on out on the pickleball court. If you want to avoid frustration and feeling stuck or lost in the sport, we challenge you to rethink your approach. Flip the script around and go from endlessly chasing shots and strategies on YouTube or from your friends to learning framework and objectives. This is how you are going to achieve meaningful growth as a pickleball player. You're going to learn how to assemble the pickleball puzzle. I see you coming back, Tony. Tony, you're muted.
I see that, and I had this whole thing on puzzles. I remember trying to build puzzles when I was younger, and trying to build a puzzle box is impossible. So, CJ, I know there's a lot of interest out there about different parts of the game. I'm trying to pull up some of the questions right now over here and see what's going on with the questions out there. You see here. CJ, what I'm going to do is let's keep rolling on this. And then what we're going to do is we're going to come back and we're going to come back to the questions. We'll roll them into the next section. So your questions will be rolling into the next section. We're going to do a check-in then.
Okay, sounds perfect. So Tony, why don't you just keep going and share with everybody, the rules of the game and how they create this positional advantage and disadvantage that I introduced them to.
We're going to do the video right now, CJ, and break it down. I love it. All right, see you in a few minutes, CJ. All right, so now that you have a better understanding of the source of the problem, right, which is what? You're gifting away too many points. And you know that you have to focus on the return side. Let's dive into some specifics that you can work on to improve your return side play and by extension, lower your gifted points from 5 to 3. Now, we're going to start with the video that was in your workshop dashboard. And so in preparation for that, you watch the video and I asked you 2 questions. Questions are up here. The questions both had to do with when you're playing on the return team, right, on the return side. So you know now why we're asking questions from that side. Now you know that it's the most important side of the pickleball, and you know it's the one you want to focus on. So let's focus at the moment of the time of the third shot, because that is when the rally starts in earnest. And quick note here, CJ and I really appreciate all the comments you put in there in response to the video. It's great to see all of you working through the process. It's an important part of making real pickleball progress to work through the process, right? Not just to look for the answer, because then you don't know how to get there. Knowing how to get there is really important. So the first question that we asked you was, where do you want to be as a return team, A, B, or C? And we're going to come over here for a second. So this is you. So the question is, do you want to be here, like this, or like this? The answer is we want to be in position C on the return team, which is this position when we're on the return team, because the best place to play pickleball from is up at the non-volley zone line. Okay. Now we think in terms of what will give us the most benefit most of the time. There are some exceptions that you have to deal with, but playing most of the time up at the non-volley zone is the optimal place from where to play pickleball. The second question was, where do we want the serve team? And remember, this is from the vantage point of the return side. Where do we want them to be? There were three options. A, B was halfway up, and C was further closer to the MVZ, right? Here, here, here. The answer is A. We want the serve side to be as far away from us as possible. I like to say I want them to be in a different zip code if I can do that. Our opponents simply can't hurt us as much from way back there as they can if they're peppering balls at us, third shots at us from up here, okay? So we want them to be all the way back here in A. Now, at first blush, these questions and answers may seem relatively simple, but they're more important. That there's more than meets the eye here. It's deeper than meets the eye. When you play pickleball, it's critical to differentiate when you're on the serve side and when you're on the return side, or serve team, return team. Critical to differentiate those two different sides of the net. And the differences are much greater than simply I'm serving or I'm returning. As you're going to learn through this mini-series, the rules of pickleball give advantages to each side of the game. This is what we refer to when we talk about framework, the pyramid that CJ showed you with the framework and objectives. It's from the framework that we understand that there's an advantage and disadvantage that determines our objectives, and then from there our strategies and our shots when we play each side differently, the serve and the return. This is a part of the puzzle of pickleball that is most commonly misunderstood. Most pickleball players do not adequately differentiate between the serve side and the return side when they think of the strategy that they're using. And it's essential to get this right, because you're going to hit different shots and have different strategies depending on which side of the net you're playing on. Now, we've established that these are the preferred positions. That's why these questions are so important, because it gives us the foundation for the next part of the conversation. Now, let's work through the framework of the game that creates this disparity in positions, right? As we mentioned, in an optimally played rally up to this point, the third shot, the court should look like this. Return team here and the serve team here. Now, the question is this: why is it that the teams are arranged like this at the time of the third shot? Did the serve team do something wrong and it deserves to be back here, or did the return team do something special or amazing where it gets to have this advantage? The answer is no. Okay? Now, if the answer is no, then why do we let one team have this advantage at the beginning of every rally? The answer is because of a rule that you may have not thought about since you started playing pickleball and learned the rule not to violate the rule at the beginning, which is what? The two-bounce rule. Now, I'm going to tell you that the two-bounce rule is actually the second most important rule in the official rules of pickleball, which surprises many players when they hear that. Okay? And this perspective of understanding how the two-bounce rule, the framework of it, impacts pickleball is absolutely critical if you want to improve as a pickleball player. Because you start understanding that there's a situation that happens at the beginning of every single rally that you play, which is a positional advantage and a positional disadvantage. The return team is given the opportunity to start here, and the serve team is stuck back here. Why? Because of the two-bounce rule. Now, what does this have anything to do with giving away points? Good question. Here's the thing. Baked into our game, every time that you're on the return team, you are given the opportunity to gain a positional advantage. Your job, when you're on the return team, is to use it to its maximum effect, right? You want to use the advantage given to you by the rules to control the court, like this, and deny your opponents over here, the serve team, the opportunity to score a point. You also want to avoid the opposite, which is losing a game, losing points and losing a game, because you failed to capitalize on the advantage given to you by the rules. Because the other critical rule that's at play here is what? The scoring rule. That balances out the two bounce rule. Two bounce rule, advantage. Scoring rule, advantage. That's the tension in pickleball, okay? If you fail to capitalize on this advantage given to you as the return side or the return team, whether it's because you missed a return of serve, or as in many of those rallies you saw, because we missed the force shot, right? They get here, we're going to the net, hit it long, something like that. Our opponents are awarded points by what? The scoring rule. When we end up giving away too many points as gifts, as gifted points, we lose. It's just simple mathematics. Now, let me tie it all together for you, and let me show you how you're going to use your new appreciation of this framework of the positional advantage, disadvantage, in order to avoid giving away as many points as you're giving away. These are the three things that you're going to want to do in order to laser focus on your return side and reduce the amount of gifted points, okay? So this is improve return side. The number one thing the first thing you're going to do, I should say, is you are going to get to the non-volley zone after every return of serve. Now, I'm going to pause here for 1 second because I know that there's many of you out there who are thinking to yourselves, I get to the non-volley zone every time, and I'm here to tell you, check yourself on that. I'm not doubting you, but I want you to check yourself on that, because players who tell us that, we put them on video or we watch them, not happening, okay? You need to be all the way out there before you have to hit that force shot. You don't want to hit it in transition. It's much easier to hit your force shot, the volley, or even off the bounce, if you're already up at the non-volley zone line, than if you're getting up there and trying to hit at the same time. Much more difficult that way. A lot more errors in force shots if you're still moving at the time you have to hit your force shot. So first, get to the MVZ every time and check yourself. You could use your phone, video yourself, see if you're doing it. Number two, and this will tie back to the video that we saw earlier, I want you to change your mindset here. Try and change your mindset when you're on the return side and you have this advantage. It's already baked in. You're standing here. You have an advantage. They're stuck. They're in bad shape. You don't need to win the point or win the rally. All you need to do, keep this team away from you. Just keep them back. So change your mentality from winning to keeping them back. Now, if you recall in the video we watched, several of the errors were what? Trying to hit winners. Slam it down into the net. Slam it 4 feet out. Let's not do it anymore. Keep them back. The points that are scored by those mistakes count the same as the most amazing shot your opponents can ever make. And then the third one, and this is going to be the focus of our next couple of workshops, in addition to some other information we're going to give you on pop-ups and also on the prioritization of other shots, is your return of serve. You need to improve your return of serve. We're going to go in more into depth into it, because this one shot will radically transform your game. It is that important.
All righty. That's a lot. Let's do that check-in, Tony, because I have got some questions. So I've got a few coming up. This one is coming from Dana T. And I don't know if that's Dana, she or he, but Dana wants to know, what is the difference between gifted points and unforced errors? Why don't you take that one?
Absolutely. A big difference, Dana. And I would say to you that gifted points, you could put them in the bigger category of unforced errors if you like to do that. We don't use unforced errors inside our training, inside the pickleball system or anything else we do, because unforced errors alone, it's too broad of a category. And you can't really do anything with that information standing alone. Like if I tell you you had 10 unforced error or 8 unforced error, okay, you had 2 more, but what kind of unforced errors, right? So gifted points are a very specific subset of unforced errors, and they're the ones that are actually costing you games. And we'll talk about it more in workshop 3 on pop-ups, but pop-ups are not costing you games. They're awful, they're terrible, I get that, and we're going to help you fix them. What's costing you games are missed returns of serve and missed force shots. Just like I showed you in the 3-5 matches, 9.5 points per game, that's almost 5 per side. That's a lot. So that's the difference. It's a subcategory if you want to think about it that way. And one that you can do more about, I should say.
Okay, so Terry wants to know this one's, and it's easier for me just to read and feed you the questions. So you just go ahead and answer these. So Terry wants to know this one. Again, not sure if it's a he or a she, Terry, but I like to take the force shot from short of the non-volley zone.
Here's a situation with that. I would suggest to you that you work on your movement up to the non-volley zone and getting comfortable hitting him in the air, because there's a factor that's often overlooked. It's outside the scope of the mini series, it could go in depth, but it's time. What happens is if you're taking the ball from here, even if you do a fantastic job with it, this team now can move forward farther than they can if you hit the ball from here. See? So it's a time issue. So recommendation would be to learn how to hit the balls from the non-volley zone line. And my guess is, if I had to guess, is that when you're missing them, when you're at the non-volley zone line, it's because you're not there early enough. And in your workbook, there's a pro tip that we give you on how to give yourself more time to get up there. So check that out. But you really want to learn to hit those balls from the non-volley zone.
Okay, Mark said this. He said, when he's at the non-volley zone, he wants to bring his opponents into the court rather than keep them back so that he can hit the ball behind them. And that conflicts with keep them back.
And Mark, no criticism here. You know, this is normal thought process, okay? We've all gone through these thought processes, different approaches. There's just simply no, it's just, if I have my opponents here, now they can harm me. They can damage me. And what you have to understand is this. Again, this is a framework thing that you're getting, which is it's not an even fight. Because if you get it past them, say you hit an awesome winner, right? Past them, cool. What'd you get? No point for you. Now, what happens if they're able to counterattack you and beat and win, win the point? They get a point. So it's not a fair fight when you're fighting them toe to toe. To me, you keep them here. I will tell you that I'll make y'all sort of a guarantee here. Keep them here, 4 shots. I'll say 3, but I'm going to make it 4 since I'm giving you the guarantee. But 3 or 4 shots. Make them hit 3 or 4 shots from here. Point's over. You don't have to do anything more. Bring them in. Now you got to create something. You got to do something funky. You got to win it. Let's not win the points. Let's take. You want to play easy street when you're on the return side. You don't want to play difficult street there. This is difficult street. This is easy street. So hopefully that helps. Again, no criticism to anybody on how I'm answering questions. So.
Barbara wants to know, she said this applies to 3-5 play for U.S. Open play. What do you think the percentage would be for 4-0 play?
Good question. It's not too dissimilar. And here's the thing. 4-0 play, when we've looked at matches, it's somewhere around, 8 per game, maybe 7-point high, but it's still a good number. And here's the thing. Even the pros give away points. The PPA is going on today. CJ and I snuck a little watching earlier, I know. But, you watch those matches, there's a missed return to serve, a missed fourth here and there. It happens. The difference is that they've played so many more rallies, right? If you did it as a percentage of rallies, they would be much lower than regular play because they play so many more. And again, that's outside the scope of today. But if you can extend matches long enough, you're going to win games because they're going to gift you points. But 4-0, I'd imagine, actually, from my recollection, it's like 8-ish, somewhere around there. But it's still reasonable.
Okay, I think this also speaks, this is coming from Karen, and this kind of ties into, I think that some people, from what I'm seeing, are just having a challenge with gifted points. And she asked the question, if someone misses a shot because the opponents hit a good shot, that's not considered gifted, right?
Correct. So like let's say they hit a third shot, as an example. They hit a third shot that is in the corner, like it's, in the MVC corner, and you're pulling wide. Oh my God, it's the best shot you've ever seen in your life, and you miss it. That's fine. I'm talking about, the ones I showed you, right? Those were, and I'll tell you this, there were some in the count that were marginal, meaning like I could have, judgment calls. I favored making them earned, not gifted. The gifts were the ones that were like, here, or it bounced, but it was like right in front of them, and it just dink it over. Don't dink it wide. Not like if you get stressed out with a shot, it's fine. But I will tell you this, and you're going to hear more about this on workshop 2. If you're getting peppered with balls early, you got a problem with this, and that's the easiest fix, rather than dealing with like having to deal with the pace coming your way. We're going to get into more depth on workshop 2, but this fixes so much.
Okay. I think we got one more. I've got one more coming from Barbara, and I think this is a really good one because she says, I was trained to get right to the non-volley zone line, but when I watch the pros, they're about 1 to 2 feet off the line, more like 18 inches. Can you address this? Now, I'm going to let Tony talk about this in just a second, but here's what I'm going to say is what you see is not always the reason that they are doing something. And that is the inherent danger in watching pro pickleball without fully understanding framework. So with that little soapbox, you go ahead and you can finish up that one.
Sure. Generally speaking, the players when they shift off the line and they come back up to the line, they don't want to play off the line. Okay. Because when you're on the line, you can do more damage. If I'm standing here, right, on your face, this is uncomfortable, right? This is not comfortable to you. You want to be uncomfortable to your opponents, right? If I'm standing back here, it's like, what am I going to do? So the closer you are to the line, the more damage you can inflict and the less angles are open to attack. The reason they're backing off the line oftentimes is because they're anticipating a hard shot by their opponents. That's a whole different situation than hitting your 4th shot from up at the non-volley zone line. Right now, we're just focused on, let's just get up here. Let's keep them back here. When they get up here, that's a whole different conversation as to how you want to move around and do things like that. Right now, we're just focused on, you know what? Let's keep it like this. Use that beautiful advantage that the rules gave us because now we know it better. And again, let's play easy, not complicated. Let's play complicated when we're down here.
Okay. One last one. I know I said the last one was it, but I think this is a good one. This is from Nancy, and it's doesn't keeping the serve team back reduce the use of the 3rd shot drop. So maybe let's talk just a little bit more about why the answer was C in the video. I know you touched on that for just a second, but talk a little bit more about that, Tony.
Yeah, actually, where I want the numbers, where I want the serve team is actually A. I want them back here. I think we might be like the order of shots might be. Let's just do this. So you have a serve, you have a return. So this is the team hitting the 3rd shot. I want to make them hit 3rd, a 5th, a 7th, a 9th, and 11th, as many as they can do, and keep them here as much as possible because they can't hurt me from here. That's why I want to keep them back because again, just like the example I gave with the camera. If I'm standing back here, what am I going to do to you? When I come all the way up here and I'm in your face like this, that's just not comfortable for you, right? And it's not a fair fight, not an even fight, because if I overcome you, your position, right? Even from here, I get a point. If you win, you get 0. That's just not you can't make a living that way, where you got to pay something and they don't pay you anything if you win. Keep them far away from you and they won't be, what are they going to do to you? Just keep hitting balls? Okay. That's where you got to improve. You keep them back, you improve your volleys, you're going to be fine.
All right. That's awesome because that is a fantastic segue because understanding that positional advantage and disadvantage framework has helped so many players. Now, I want to show this. This is from Diane, and Diane is one of our members inside of the pickleball system. And here's what she had to say. My partner came from tennis, but was brand new to pickleball. Our opponents were 2 younger ladies with 15 plus years of tennis and 3 years of pickleball. I briefly explained framework and the positional advantage. We concentrated on overcoming the positional disadvantage and maintaining the advantage. They were shocked. They lost 11-3. They requested a rematch. Same result, 11-4. Now, you now know the secret of why you're losing more games than you should. Specifically, you know that you have to plug a leak in your game. Stop giving away so many points. You know that you're gifting points because of flaws in your return side play, which leads us to the conclusion that your focus needs to be on your return side. And that until you have a watertight return side, everything else in your game can wait. You also know more about framework of pickleball, specifically the framework that leads us to a return side first approach to improvement. Having this knowledge is an important first step along this new phase of your pickleball journey. It gives you a clearer picture of that part of the puzzle. Now, 2 more notes I want to take you through from this workshop. Number 1, you can do this. And it doesn't matter if you've been playing pickleball for 7 years or 7 months. It also doesn't matter if you came over from tennis or have no sport background whatsoever. Having a clear picture of the puzzle will allow you to play amazing pickleball. The concepts we're teaching, and this is the second thing, the concepts that we're teaching today and during the next couple of workshops apply no matter where you are in the game, from a brand new player all the way up to a pro player. The framework and objectives that underlie this part of a pickleball apply no matter what. The shots and the strategies you use will evolve. We refer to that evolution as setting a bar. Think of pole vaulters. Every pole vaulter sets a bar to a height that's going to challenge them, but is reasonably reachable for them. And that's the same here. As you develop as a pickleball player, you're going to continue to raise the bar to what's appropriate for you. But there's always going to be more space to raise the bar further and further whenever you're ready. Your framework and objectives, however, those are always going to be the same. Your shots and your strategies are what's going to evolve. My guess is that for a lot of you, this way of looking at pickleball is brand new. And even if you are familiar with some of these concepts, honing your understanding of it helps you to get a clearer picture of how to perform on the court. So as you work through this process with me and Tony, give yourself time and space that you need to digest this. I mean, because remember, this is your journey. It is not your friend's journey or another player you know. It is your journey. Later in this mini-series, we're going to share the pickleball system with you. And the system is designed by us around this framework, including the critical distinction between the serve and the return sides. And it will ensure you play each side optimally. You'll find that the system is no nonsense, no noise approach to achieving your pickleball goals, giving you all the tools you need, available 24/7, 365. So as we pivot into your action plan, what I'd like you to let us know is one thing you learned today, or one thing that clicked inside of your head. Go ahead and put that in the chat. Because in the next workshop, we are going to give you a chance to meet some of your fellow students and to share that. But for now, put your key takeaways into the chat. Tony, you're muted.
My favorite thing today is mute myself. CJ likes it when I mute myself. So, all right, as you go and working in the chat, I hope everybody's doing all right out there. Sometimes this sort of deep shift in thinking can feel a little disorienting at first. Give it some time, and you're going to be amazed at how you're going to start seeing things much better. You'll start getting that super pickleball vision, little parts of it anyway. During our next 2 workshops, we're going to dive into the specifics on the one shot that you're likely not paying attention to, right? That return to serve, but that's the one that's going to radically improve your game. Between now and Tuesday, here's your action plan, okay? Is to begin to shift your understanding and appreciation of the dynamics that determine your goals. We're going to start by recognition. Pay attention to your gifted points. If you play between now and Tuesday, pay attention to them, okay? Doesn't have to be exact. You don't have to like a calculator or anything like that. Just make a mental note whenever you see a gifted point. Make a mental note. When you do it, your partner does it, or your opponents do it, right? And you're going to be surprised at how often it happens, right? Miss returns a shot, miss returns a serve, and miss 4 shots. That's the key. We prepared a pre-workshop video for you, just like the one we did before this workshop. The ABC video, we did one for workshop, we prepared one for workshop 2. Check that one out. It's going to be in your mini-series dashboard, I believe, later on today. Watch it before the workshop. And then make sure that workshop 2 is on your calendar. Tuesday, September 12th, 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern, and all times in between. So make sure you got that on your calendar. You're not going to want to miss it. I think CJ got something else to add to this thing, I think.
I do.
Oh, no.
I absolutely do. I'm bringing the paddle back. Because we are going to talk more about grip pressure and how that applies both in workshop 2 to calm your mind as well as in workshop 3 in the pop-up. So I'd like you to go back and I'd like you to do that grip pressure exercise. And if you happen to be going to the courts, put a little focus into it. I think you're going to be amazed at how quickly that can impact your game. So I'm referring back to the chat, and what I'm seeing here is like, 2 sides. That's a lot of points.
There's our word cloud there.
Focus on the return. Back. Oh, I like that. Keep them back. Gifted.
And CJ, if I may, listen, not focusing on the return side is perfectly normal. Okay. Yeah. Don't feel like, oh my God, I've been doing the wrong things. You're doing what everybody does. That's why we're here, to get you to focus on the thing that really matters, because that's really what's going to improve your game.
So when you do go back to your dashboard, that's the place where you hit the button to come in and enter this meeting. Everything you need is going to be on that dashboard. You are going to see a question about your key takeaway. So feel free to give us more detail there if you'd like. Or if you have a chance to go out onto the court, come back into the dashboard and let us know what happened to you when you took these concepts out on the court and how it changed your game. So congratulations again. You have taken the first step towards losing less and playing better. And we are going to keep it going. We will see you in the next workshop coming on Tuesday. In the meantime, as we like to say, have fun out there.
Have fun, everybody. Good seeing you.